All right, namaste, and thank you everyone who has joined in for this first class on Vedic Astrology Foundations. Now, when we speak about Vedic astrology, okay, I'm just coming to the prime reason why this course was arranged or why this course was put together. It's because there is a lot of things flying around in the internet, right? We live in the age of internet. It is supposed to be the age of information, but what it has become is that it has become an age of misinformation. Okay, so what happens is there was a need for this course which actually teaches astrology from the very beginning. Okay, now a few of you who have joined here, I know a few of you have no background of astrology, but a few of you do have it. So I'll not treat you as as advanced students of astrology. Okay, I'll simply treat you as someone who is learning astrology from scratch, right? So when we speak about astrology, it's more about more about having an understanding of the astronomical conditions that are involved. Okay, and when we say about astronomical conditions, of course, our solar system comes into picture. The various planets that are that are in the solar system comes into the picture, and of course we we have our Earth, right? We have our Earth, and when we look at Vedic astrology, we will study from the Earth as a reference point. Okay, so I'll come to this. I'll come to this in the succeeding classes. But Vedic astrology, as they say, or as it has become, it is not about it's not about providing a consultation. Unfortunately, it has become it has become more of a business nowadays. Astrologers recommend stones or gemstones or whatever, and what it does is that it messes up the life of the client. Okay, so this is something that I have experienced, and this was one of the reasons why I had actually started learning Vedic astrology in the first place, and then I started teaching Vedic astrology. Okay, now the other thing being, when you learn Vedic astrology, consultation comes at a much later part. Okay, because you can give a consultation only when you can predict things, right? But nowadays what has happened is, because a little knowledge is a dangerous thing. We have all heard this cliche in our in our school days, in our forming years, but it has actually become a very dangerous thing when we look at it with regards to Vedic astrology, because some people have just learned we have a wee bit of knowledge about astrology and they start giving out consultations, and the entire life of the client gets messed up. But this is not to blame anyone. Okay, this is not to put the blame on anyone. Even even so-called reputed astrologers are responsible for doing it, right? So it is that age, isn't it? It's just that age of Kali Yuga where we are living in, right? Where we are living in, and people have become money centric. Of course, the astrologer must ask for his or her fee. That goes without saying. But then just to exploit the client in the name of fear, right? In the name of Shani, basically. Shani is a planet which has been used to extract money from a lot of people, right? Shani, Rahu, Ketu, Mangal. Okay, so nevertheless, so in my opinion, astrology is about understanding yourself. It's a tool for understanding yourself, who you are, right? Why you are in a certain way. Okay, we have all heard about that saying that you are unique, right? But what makes us unique is the placement of our planets. Okay, so that is the reason we are unique. That is the reason we have a unique point of view, right? And I'll also come to the point why so many people have the same placement, but each of them behave differently. So that is also something that I'll deal with in the subsequent or in the classes that will follow. Okay, so now when we speak about astrology, okay, we always have to begin with a mantra, right? When we start learning something, we'll always begin with a mantra. So that is a given thing. So from the next class onwards, we will actually begin with this mantra from the Kathopanishad. A lot of people who are in India and who have studied in Kendra Vidyalayas, or the KVs as they are popularly known as, they would be familiar with this mantra. But this mantra has a lot of other implications also. In fact, all mantras have other implications, right? They are not to be used very casually. They are not meant to be thrown around very casually like people do nowadays. Okay, people give you a mantra, they ask you to chant it, and they promise you miracles, but at the end of the day, nothing happens. Okay, so this is a common problem. This is a common problem with all the people who have done mantra at some level have experienced this, that a mantra was given to them with the promise that it will work, but at the end of the day, it does not end up working. Okay, so why does it happen is because the mantra has 3 parts to it. Okay, number 1, you have to understand the mantra, what it means. Okay, you have to understand the mantra, what it means. Number 2, there are certain ways to do a mantra. Okay, there is this nyas coming in, right? Mantra Shastra. If you are starting a mantra, there is a proper, nyas that has to be done. Okay, and then there is also the question of swara. Okay, there is also the question of swara, where a mantra has to be pronounced accordingly, right? Now there are different types of mantras. There are Vedic mantras, there are tantric mantras, and Vedic mantras are for everyone. Okay, except those mantras which require initiation. Vedic mantras are for everyone. Okay, they are for humans, they are for plants, they are for trees, they are for animals, they are for birds, they are for everyone. But tantric mantras are not for everyone. They have certain criteria to fulfill. Okay, Vedic mantras ask you to follow a lot of rules, a lot of regulations. Tantric mantras, they don't ask you to follow such rules, such regulations. And then there are other types of mantras which are known as Shabar mantras, which are actually for the modern age. And I'm very fond of Shabar mantras because they act very, okay. They act very, very quickly. I'll not deal with Shabar mantras in any of the astrological classes. That is a different topic altogether. But even I'll not deal with tantric mantras. I just want you to get clarified with this aspect of Vedic mantras, how to make mantras work. So I'll take this as a lesson in today's class on how to pronounce a mantra and how to understand a mantra. Okay, so I'll just begin sharing my screen. Just a minute. Okay. All right. So this is the mantra that we will be using from the Katha Upanishad. It's a combination of 2 words, Katha and Upanishad. Upanishad, of course, is referred to as the summary of the Vedas. Okay. Most of the people, they take the Vedic mantras very literally. They are not meant to be taken literally. There is a certain understanding to Vedic mantras. I'll not go into the details of mantra shastra, but we'll use this mantra every time we begin the class. Okay. So this is from the Katha Upanishad. So as I said, those who are from India and who have studied in the Kendra Vidyalayas, they will be familiar with this mantra, but I don't know how many of you know the meaning of it. Okay. So Om Sahana Avatu. Okay. So Om, of course, is the Shabd Brahman. Saha is together. No, which means both or all. Avatu means may he protect. So this is, as I said, Upanishad is like the cream of the Vedas. Okay, it is like the cream of the Vedas. It is how the Vedic descriptions are, where the student is learning the summary of the Vedas from the teacher. Okay, and whatever the teacher has been saying is actually documented in the Upanishad. So it is actually a prayer to the Supreme. Om is, of course, Shabd Brahman, right? It is independent of religion. Okay, it is independent of religion. Don't ever think that if you follow a different religion, you cannot practice Vedic astrology. Nothing as such. Okay. Saha means together. Now means both or all. That means it could be an interaction between one teacher, the guru, and the student, or it could be an interaction between the guru and a group of students. Okay. And Avatu means seeking protection from the Supreme. So it means that, O Supreme Being, may we all be protected. Saha now Hunaktu. So Saha again together. Now means both or all. Hunaktu, be nourished and energized. Okay, so may we all be nourished. So here we are not speaking about nourishment from food. We are actually speaking about nourishment from the knowledge that the Guru is transmitting to us. Okay, so Saha now Bhunaktu. Then Saha Viryam Karava Vahai. So Saha again together. Viryam is energy. Kara is hand. Avahai means bring to use. So may we work together with great energy. So it is said that all our karmas, they flow from our hands, right? They flow from our hands. That is the reason very many traditions recommend you to look at your hands when you wake up as the first thing. When you wake up in the morning, most traditions recommend that you should look at your hands as the first thing in the morning. Okay, so this is Saha Viryam Karavavahai. That means may we work together with great energy. And then Tejasvi Nav Adhi Tama Astu. So Tejasvi meaning having great energy. Now again means both or all. Adhi means intellect or study. Tama means higher degree. Okay, and Astu, so be it. So it means that may our intellect be sharpened, or in other words, may whatever we are studying, may it be effective. Okay. Now you may ask me why we are doing this mantra. I'll complete the mantra and then tell you. So ma with fish avaha hai. So ma is not be. This is not this is not a pronunciation for mother. Okay, ma means not be. With fish means animosity. Avahai. Avahai means bring or have. So let there be no animosity amongst us. That means if a student is learning under a guru, then there should not be any kind of animosity between the pupils who are under the tutelage of a particular guru. But this is very contradictory to what has been taught to us, right? Nowadays, under the modern education system, we are taught that resources are scarce and you should be competing against yourself. You should be competing against your classmates. Your classmate is doing well. Why are you not doing well? So all these things are taught to us. But this is very much contradictory as to what is there in the Upanishads, that is as to what is there in the Vedas. Okay, so it means we have to grow together. Okay, we must learn together without any animosity. So a lot of us have grown up hearing our parents say that you must be the best, you must become the number one in your class or maybe in your college, right? So this is very contradictory to what the modern education system teaches us, but this is what we will follow. Okay, this is what we will follow. And why this mantra and why I'm actually giving out this mantra is because we are actually having the knowledge of the ancients in a very modern way. Okay, we are having the knowledge of the ancients in a very modern way. So what it does to us is that this knowledge, which is actually the domain of Jupiter, we are having it through the medium of the internet, which is signified by Rahu. Okay, name of the mantra. Okay, I'll not tell you that. I just want you to find it out. I'll give you the swaras. Okay, so lastly, the mantra ends with Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. So Shanti is of course peace, but why we are saying it thrice? Because we want peace in ourselves, we want peace in nature, and then we will also want peace in the divine forces that are running our destinies. Okay, and we will actually look at how astrology is about understanding those divine forces, and it is not one force, but it is a combination of many forces which are in control or in charge of our destinies.
खाली तो रोटी बनाएगी या मंगवाऊं?
Okay. I'll just ask the participants to mute themselves. That would be a better option. Anyways, so this is the swara. Now, as I said, you have to understand the mantra. Okay, you have to understand the mantra. Now, this mantra does not require any kind of nyas or anything. You just fold your hands in this Anjali Mudra. Okay, this is the Anjali Mudra, the mudra of offering. Okay, so you just say this mantra, but there is a particular way to say it. Okay, so I'll just say it once or twice, maybe for the benefit of everyone, and then everyone can practice this for the next class. Okay. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Saha Viryam Karavavahai Tejasvina Vidhitamastu Ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. So what happens, you see, the swara is much different from what the written mantra is. Okay, so this is very, very important, and this is very, very interesting, because what happens is Vedas, why the Vedas are transmitted orally, is because you cannot get the swaras written anywhere. Okay, the swara has to come from a guru, right? The swara has to come from a guru. And suppose the Vedas, they are filled with natural sounds, okay, and you have to pronounce it exactly in the way that the guru pronounces, right? For example, suppose I ask you to pronounce the sound of rain, okay, so some will say tap tap tap, that is how the rainwater hits the ground. Some may say tip tip tip, and we don't know what the correct pronunciation is. But when the guru pronounces it, it means he has learned it from a certain lineage. Okay, he has learned it from a certain lineage. He has learned it from his gurus, then his guru has learned it from his own guru, and so on. Okay, I mean, I'm not being gender specific here. Vedas can be learned by everyone, as I said. So there is a certain way to, to pronounce the mantra, and it becomes very different from what was written here. Okay, so again, just for the benefit of everyone, Om Sahana Bhavatu, Sahano Bhunaktu, Sahaviryankaravavahai, Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. So you see how the pronunciation is becoming different here. Om Sahana Bhavatu. Okay. Om Sahana Bhavatu. It's not Sahana Bhavatu, it's Sahana Bhavatu. Right? Then Sahanau Bhunaktu. Sahaviryang. So this I'm not pronouncing it as Viryam. It is Viryang, young. So it is, this N with a dot over it, it is NG. It can be pronounced as NG. Sahaviryang karavavahai. Again, it's not karavavahai, it is karavavahai. Tejasvi Nava. This is Nava. This A with a bar here. This is Nava. Theta. This is I. If you see the I with a bar over here, this is Theta. Dhee. Theta mastu. Mavid Visha. If you see a dot below the S, it becomes H. It will be pronounced as SH. Visha Bahai E. So just see these two bars over the I. So we'll just pull the pronunciation. Okay, you will pull the pronunciation. This is known as Chandas. We'll come to what Chandas means basically. And then in the written form of the mantra, it is Om Shanti Shanti Shantihi. But in the pronunciation, it is Om Shantish Shantish Shantihi. So if you just see this I, we are pulling it, and this colon here, it means he. Okay, so this is this is how the pronunciations are done. Of course, Vedic pronunciations, as I said, they are not for everyone. Right, so we will actually start with this, with this mantra as we begin the class. So just for the benefit of everyone, I'm just reiterating it for the final time. Okay. Om Sahana Bhavatu, Sahana Bhunaktu, Sahaviryankaravavahai, Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. So this is for the well-being of everyone. And whenever you study Jyotish, or whenever you study anything for that matter, this mantra is most recommended. Okay. All right. So I don't have any more slides to share today. Okay. I'll just come to just begin the class. So let this be the beginning of our, of our journey. So any doubts till here? I hope there are no doubts, or I've made myself clear. Okay. All right. So astrology, or Vedic astrology, they are as old as the Vedas themselves. Okay, they are as old as the Vedas themselves. But just to put a few things in perspective. Yes, Sandeep, the recording will be available, but I recommend everyone to attend a live class, because I will be putting out the recordings only on Wednesday. That is a bit deliberate on my part, but I just want everyone to attend the live class so that they can actually have an experience of this. Okay. So anyways, yes, Dhanuja, it is a Shanti mantra from the Kathopanishad. Okay, it is from the Kathopanishad, not the Taittiriya Upanishad. Right. All right. So just a few quick things to tell you. Okay. To tell every one of you. So when you just remember these things, I'll not repeat it again. Number one, astrology will come under the domain of 3 planets. Okay. Number one is, we'll go to the planets, of course, we'll see what their characteristics and everything are. So number one, the most important, the most important planet that governs astrology is the sun, Surya, because the name of Vedic astrology is Jyotish. Okay, so Jyoti means light, right? And it is the sun, it is the sun that throws light on whatever you are trying to see in a person's life. Okay, so Jyotish is about the sun, which throws the light. Then there is the domain of Jupiter. Okay, so all the rules, right, all the information that you will get from the guru, right, all the things that you learn under Vedic astrology, the gyan is actually the domain of Jupiter. Okay, all the, whatever you learn, right, whatever you learn regarding the planets, regarding the signs, regarding the nakshatras, regarding the placements of the planets, everything regarding the divisional charts, regarding the chart, regarding the astronomical conditions that influence the planetary positions and alignments in the chart, everything comes under the domain of Jupiter. Okay, and then the final, finally we go to the domain of Ketu, which is responsible for our intuitive abilities. Okay, Ketu is responsible for our intuitive abilities, right? So it really helps. I'll tell you the condition which is very, very essential for, for the astrologer to exercise or to apply his or her intuition. But then, because astrology is under the domain of 3 planets, so every time you open a chart, you'll always follow these 3 mantras. And this is even, this is applicable even when you are looking at a chart for a learning purpose, or even when you are looking at your own chart, right? You should use these 3 mantras, which I'll be giving it to you now, so that you have a better understanding of the planets. And astrology is all about understanding, what the planet is trying to tell you. Okay, it's all about trying to understand what the planet is trying to tell you. Okay, so number 1, the first mantra that you will do after opening a chart is Namah Shivaya. Okay, Namah Shivaya is the mantra for Shiva or Rudra, that is, who is also the Pratyadi Devata of Surya. So you will say Namah Shivaya 12 times, because a chart will have 12 houses. So you'll say Namah Shivaya 12 times because you want all the 12 houses to reveal your secrets to you. Okay, so you need not, sit in any kind of special position or whatever. You just say Namah Shivaya 12 times. All right, that is number 1. Number 2, it is Om Gurave Namaha. Okay, Om Gurave Namaha. Om Gurave Namaha is the mantra for Jupiter. Okay, but I want you to say that mantra for 5 times. Why 5 times? Because 5 is the number of Mercury. And every time you are looking at a chart, or you are you are saying something, the saying should be pleasant. Okay, there are certain astrologers who may be very, very good with whatever they say, or whatever, whatever work they do, but they don't have a, they don't have a pleasant demeanor, they don't have a pleasant voice, they don't have a pleasant way of saying things. They are very rough, they're very harsh. So you don't want that harshness in your, so that at least clients don't get scared by your predictions. Of course, bad things will happen to your clients, of course bad things will happen to you, but your objective is to counsel the clients. Your objective is not to scare the clients. Okay, you have to counsel, you have to know how to counsel your clients, you have to know how to give them a better understanding of their charts. You cannot just go and see, suppose you see a client who will be having a very bad year, or a very bad dasha, or maybe the mrityu dasha of the client is running. You cannot just come and you cannot just go and tell the client, oh, so you'll be dying the next year, so you make all the preparations. The client will simply run away and never come back to you, and he or she will advise 10 other people also not to come to you. Okay, so this was this chart I was looking at of a lady who was doing very, very well, but I could see that her Mrityu Dasha was approaching in the next 6 months. So what I told her is that please have a health insurance for yourself, so that you don't end up in a very bad state in the hospital or anywhere else. So that is one way of, of subtly telling the client that, okay, some difficult times are coming. And I had reiterated this, almost 10 times throughout the entire consultation. And fortunately, the client understood what I was trying to say. So Namah Shivaya 12 times, Om Gurave Namaha 5 times. And finally, the mantra for Ganesha, who is the ruling deity of Ketu. So you want the planets to speak to you. Okay, you want the planets to speak to you, right? So what you will do is that you will say the Vedic Ganesha mantra, Gananam Tua Ganapatigum, which is, of course, can be difficult for most people because you have to say it with a proper swara. So it runs like this: Ganana Antua Ganapatigum Havamahe Kavim Kavinam Upamashravastamam Jeshtarajam Brahmanam Brahmanaspati Anashinvannuti Bisida Sadhanam Om Shri Mahaganapataye Namaha. So this is, of course, very, very difficult. Okay, this is, of course, very, very difficult. But The easier way is to say Om Gam Ganapataya Namah again for 5 times. Okay, so you want the energy of Ketu to help you out, but again you want to simplify it using the energy of Mercury, so you'll be using it for 5 times, right? So this is, these are the basic things for any astrologer. Whenever you look at a chart or your own chart or anyone else's chart, for the purpose of reading it, for the purpose of understanding it, for the purpose of giving out a consultation or whatever it is, you have to do these mantras. Okay, all right. So we begin, right? So as I had said, astrology is as old as the Vedas, right? And Vedas, they are, they are regarded as apurushaya. Apurushaya means they have not been written by anyone. Okay, as I said, Vedas can, if nowadays, if you search for the Vedas, a lot of options will come on the internet. But in reality, what happens is that, the Vedas can only be transmitted. Okay, they can be transmitted from one generation to the other. That means from the guru to the shishya. Okay, so they are apurusha. That means they cannot be written down, and they were received by the sages in their highest forms of meditation, in their highest states of meditation. That is okay. So Vedas, the Vedic mantras, if you look at the Vedic mantras, or if you hear the Vedic mantras, they may appear as, as mere ritualistic obligations to the, to the elements like air or water or thunder or wind. But, once you understand the Vedic mantras and then you say them as per the proper swaras, like I have demonstrated, they will start revealing themselves to you. Maybe in your dream, or maybe you're just working and all of a sudden some deep insight comes. So that is how the Vedic mantras are meant to be studied. Okay, and it is said that in the olden times you had to, in the Gurukula system, under the Gurukula system of education, you just had to, you had to undergo a rigorous practice of saying Om for 13 years. Only then the Vedas were made approach accessible to you. Okay, it is said that you had to, you had to say Om for 13 long years. Okay, only then the Vedas where, the guru would actually initiate you into the Vedas. So that is, that is something that was very, very rigorous. Nowadays, of course, it is not possible of the time, right, of the place we are living in. If you ask the student to just say Om for 13 years, forget the Vedas, the student will never come to the guru. Okay, so it was a very rigorous practice. Okay, the student had to undergo some rigorous practices at the tutelage of the guru to learn the hidden meanings that were there in the Vedas. Okay, now to understand, okay, to understand what lies there in the Vedas, certain subjects are considered to be mandatory. Okay, and these subjects, they are known as the Vedanga. Veda plus Anga. Vedanga. Vedanga means the limb of the Vedas. Okay, so we have 6 such Vedangas. So we have the Siksha. Okay, the Siksha part, it deals with the understanding of the Vedic Varnas. Now, Varna is not the same as the caste system. Okay, Varna is actually associated with color. Okay, I'll not go into Varnas. Maybe we can have a detailed discussion on Varnas later on. Okay, it does not mean the caste system. Please don't confuse Varna with caste. Caste means jati. Varna means your natural way of working. Okay, then there is the swara. As I said, you have to do the mantras with your proper swara. And then there are the matras. Matras means the correct pronunciation technique. And again, as I said, the correct pronunciation can come only from the gurus. YouTube is not the place for that correct pronunciation. We have a habit of going into YouTube and searching for those mantras, but the pronunciations that you hear, they are not authorized by anyone. So the authority is the guru. Okay. Then there is the second part of the Veda is known as the Chanda. Chanda means a particular meter. Okay, meter of lyrical utterance, of how the lyrics will go up and how the lyrics will go down, right? How one alphabet will be pulled in a certain way. For example, the Mrityunjaya mantra, which is very, very common. Okay, but there is a particular chandas in doing it. For example, we know the Mrityunjaya mantra, Trayambakam yajamahe sugandhim pushtivardhanam urvarukamiva bandhanan mrityurmukshayamamrita. But if you do it with a proper, with a proper swara and proper chanda, so it will be Trayambakam yajamahe sugandhim pushtivardhanam urvarukamiva bandhanan mrityurmukshayamamritaat. So this is the chanda. It is mamritat. It is just going up and then coming down. Okay, so this is the lyrical utterance of the Vedic suktas, right? Then Vyakarana. Vyakarana means the grammar. Right, you have to understand the grammatical aspects of the language, where the chandas will, where the meter will go up, where the meter will come down, where the meter will remain steady. Okay, and then comes the nirukta part. Nirukta is the, it is the difficult words like the padas and the mantras. Again, all this has to flow due to by the grace of the guru. Okay, you just cannot go and learn these things from the internet, right? You cannot expect that I'll have a few, I'll learn a few Sanskrit lessons and I'll get this knowledge from, from others. It's not possible. Okay, it has to come from the guru, right? Then kalpa. Kalpa means the ritualistic aspect of the Vedas, right? What rituals are meant to be done for the propitiation of the planets, or for the propitiation of the 5 elements, or for the propitiation of the natural forces like rain or thunder. Suppose there is no rain in a particular place, what mantras are to be said for, for bringing the rain, right? What mantras are to be said for, for ending the drought. So all these things are dealt under the kalpa part of the Vedanga. And finally comes Jyotish, or astrology. Okay, so astrology, it represents the eye of the Vedas. Okay, because it allows you to see into the future. Okay, so it it deals with the, it has capacity to see the past, the present, and the future. And astrology is actually considered to be the most important to the Vedanga, because the other parts you can decipher with your mind, but in astrology, you, apart from using your mind to learn, apart from using your mind to understand, to interpret, you also have to use your intuition, as I said, which is of course the domain of Ketu Maharaj. Okay, so now the question is, what is astrology? Right, we have heard about Jyotish, we have heard about astrology, we keep on hearing it, we subscribe to our YouTube channels, whatever it is. So what is actually astrology? So astrology is a very scientific study and application of the language of heavenly bodies, which are known as gola, or which are known as planets. Okay, they are known as golas, or they are known as planets. Okay, so these heavenly bodies, which are determined on the basis of astronomy and mathematics. So understand these two words. Astronomy and mathematics, they play a very important role in Vedic astrology, because if if you want to get this proper knowledge of astrology, you need to know certain parts of astronomy, and you have to know certain parts of mathematics, because if you don't know these two subjects, then what happens? Your knowledge of astrology will always remain incomplete. Okay, so these planets, they are mapped in the form of a horoscope. Okay, and the horoscope is nothing but a snapshot of the sky at the exact moment in which we were born. Okay, now you may ask me, what is which correct time to take, right? Which correct time to take on the, as the birth time? It is the time when the umbilical cord is cut. Okay, your mother would know, right? Your mother would know. That is the correct time. The time when the umbilical cord is cut by the doctor, that is the time of birth. All right. So if anyone had a doubt regarding this, right? So what happens is, as I said, the horoscope is a snapshot of the sky at the exact moment of your birth. So each planet will be placed in specific locations in the horoscope, and those specific locations will point to specific happenings in case of individuals. Okay, in case of individuals. And Vedic astrology is also governed by a factor which is known as Desha, Kala, and Paristhiti. Okay, Desha, Kala, and Patra, that is. So Desh means the the country in which you are born, Kala means the time in which you are born, and Patra means the conditions or the circumstances of your birth, right? So a prediction, suppose a person is having, a person is born in the USA and a person is born in India, because of the geographical location, right? Or because of the geographical difference, the planets will be placed differently, even if the person is, two people are born at the same time in two different countries. Because of the geographical differences in the region or in the topography, the planets will be placed differently, right? Similarly, because of the because of the times that we are living in, the interpretations will be different. Because of the countries, now America is a developed country, India is a developing country, so the things that are available in America may not be available in India, and vice versa. The things that are available in India may not be available in America. For example, recently I had done a ritual for a gentleman who was living in the United States, and I'd asked him, do you have Tulsi plant at home, because you need to do something with the Tulsi plant? And he said that no, because it is winter, so we don't have it. But in India, the Tulsi plant is available 12 months of a year. So this is the influence of Patra. Okay, this is the influence of Kala, this is the influence of Desha which comes in, right? So the point being, astrology is criticized by a lot of people as mumbo jumbo. They say that astrology is mumbo jumbo. But why this criticism has come up, it is because of two reasons. Number one, no one knows the basics of astrology. They are just, they are, as I said, they are just looking at YouTube videos and doing, and doing certain predictions. By God's grace, some predictions may become right, but most of the predictions, they go wrong. And the other factor being most reputed or well-learned astrologers, they are in job of making money. And because they want to make money anyhow, they sell gemstones to the clients. And those gemstones, if recommended in a wrong way, they will actually never, they will actually end up destroying the life of the client. Okay, so this is something that must be understood. All right, this is something that must be understood. Heard that the time is the time of Bhusparsh. No, it is not the time of Bhusparsh. It is the time of the cutting of the umbilical cord. Okay, it is not the time of Bhusparsh. Bhusparsh is when your feet is touching to the ground. How do you touch the feet of the baby to the ground? Okay, the baby will be either placed on the bed, or it will be, it will be placed on that cradle or whatever in the hospital. Okay. Now, the point is, can you study astrology? Will astrology be, will astrology be good for you? Now, for those who don't have a knowledge of their chart, you don't have to take this seriously. But for not the time of first cry either. No, not the time of first cry, because I myself cried after 12 minutes of birth. Okay, so it's not the time of first cry. Okay.
Deepanshu, can I ask a question?
Yeah.
So this of cutting the umbilical cord, do you happen to know, I guess what I'm thinking, like for myself, I'm born in another country, and is this cutting of the umbilical cord, like let's say in India, is it known that it's done very, within seconds of the birth?
Generally what happens is, initially we used to have those normal deliveries in India. Okay, so most people of my generation had a normal birth, right? So in that way, the mother would know. Okay, the mother would know that, okay, this is the time when the umbilical cord was cut. But what happens at the time of cesarean deliveries is, generally, if you tell the doctor, please note the time when the umbilical cord was cut, the doctors are generous enough in India to do it. I don't know what happens in foreign countries, but in India, the doctors are generous enough to note down the time and tell you that, okay, this has happened at this time.
Okay, so you're saying universally, if there is a like vaginal birth,
Yeah,
that
if the universal standard for determining the birth time is the cutting of the umbilical cord.
and that usually happens within seconds of the baby coming out.
Yes.
You Deepanshu.
Yeah. Okay. So now, for those who are not familiar with their birth charts, this is not a problem. Don't take it seriously, but I'll just give you the conditions for who should become an astrologer, who should study astrology. Okay. So as I had said, for those who have joined in late, as I've said, the 3 planets for studying astrology is the Sun, Jupiter, and Ketu, but there are other aspects as well. Okay. So the first condition where astrology will appeal to you, okay, where astrology will appeal to you and you will go for a long study of astrology, is when your 5th lord is associated with Agni Grahas. Now, what are the Agni Grahas? The Agni Grahas are Sun and Mars. Now, if your 5th lord are Sun and Mars, naturally you will have an affinity for studying astrology. Okay. But if your 5th lord is situated with Agni Grahas, it becomes very, very easy for you to understand the concepts that are there in Vedic astrology. Now, I'm not saying that if your 5th lord is not associated with Agni Grahas, then you will not be able to study astrology. No, but your pickup speed or whatever is being taught to you will be very, very slow. But if your 5th lord is an Agni Graha, or if your 5th lord is associated with Agni Grahas, then you would be actually be very good in picking up the concepts. Okay, that is number 1. Number 2, your lagna, that means your rising sign or your lagna lord, must have some relation with Jupiter and Surya. It must have some relation. Okay, it may be, maybe Jupiter and Surya are placed in the lagna, maybe Jupiter and Surya are aspecting the lagna, or maybe Jupiter and Surya are aspecting the lagna lord and things like that. Okay, so this is the second condition, because if Jupiter and Surya are not aspecting the lagna, or present in the lagna, or not aspecting the lagna lord, or conjuncting with the lagna lord, what will happen is You may have volumes of information, you may have read all the books of astrology, but you will not be able to remember the information. Okay. And then because Surya is, is the one who is throwing the light. So suppose you have read all the books of astrology, maybe you have acquired a PhD in astrology. Okay. But if Surya is not, it is not associated or is not aspecting the Lagna or the Lagna Lord or associated with the Lagna or the Lagna Lord, what will happen is someone comes to you for a consultation, you'll go blank once the chart is opened. Okay, I have seen this applicable in many cases. I have this aunt of mine who has done her PhD in astrology, but she is someone who never gives out predictions. And I've always wondered why. And then one day I asked her out of curiosity, why are you not giving out predictions? You are only concerned with research of astrology. She said that I don't know. My mind goes blank when I open up a chart. And later on when I learned this, okay, I could see that there was no connection of Surya with either her Lagna or the Lagna Lord. Okay. Thirdly, Ketu must be placed in a fire sign. Okay, Ketu must be placed in a fire sign. Fire signs are Sagittarius, Aries, and Leo, right? So Aries, Leo, and Sagittarius, these are the fiery signs. So Ketu must be placed in a fire sign. I'm speaking only about the Rashi chart or the Lagna chart. I'm not going into the divisional charts at all here. So Ketu must be placed in a fire sign. This is very important. Okay, this is very important. Because if Ketu is placed in a water sign, right, the planets will not speak to you. You can try it for yourself. You can have a lot of concepts. You may have learned a lot of astrology, but when it comes to, when it comes to making a prediction, because Ketu is the most important planet for prediction. When it comes to making a prediction, you will not be able to predict if Ketu is placed in any sign other than a fire sign. Of course, that can be developed. I'll tell you the ways to develop your intuition. That's for a later part. But for your prediction to come naturally, for the planets to speak to you naturally, it is very important that your natal placement of Ketu is in a, it is in a fire sign. Okay. For example, I have Venus in the 7th house. Millions of people will have Venus in the 7th house, but what my Venus will do will be much different from what my friend's Venus will do, since it is also placed in the 7th house. So that ability to see the difference can be possible only if the planet starts speaking to you. This is very important. Now, don't take this as a complicated mambo jumbo. My intention is not to scare any one of you. Okay, my intention is not to scare any one of you. But there are certain spiritual practices that the astrologer must do if these things are not there naturally in the chart. Okay, and I'll tell you what. All right. Lastly, can you earn from astrology? That is also important. Okay, can you earn from astrology? And that is seen if the Atma Karaka makes any kind of relationship with the 11th house or the 11th Lord. There are 7 or 8 Charakarakas according to Jaimini basically. Out of those Charakarakas, the one with the highest degree becomes the Atma Karaka. In my way of looking at astrology, I consider Rahu as the, I consider Rahu in the scheme of Charakaraka. Some people may not consider it. It's absolutely fine. Okay. But whatever scheme you follow, the Atma Karaka, that means the planet with the highest degree. Okay. The planet with the highest degree. That planet must, be associated somehow in your 11th house, with your 11th house or your 11th Lord. Okay, so this is how you can earn from astrology. Some people are there in astrology. Okay, some people they just do astrological predictions without any expectation for remuneration. And then there are some people who will take up astrology as a full-time career. So whether you can take up astrology as a full-time career, or you will just do it for the for the sake of understanding yourself or for helping people out, that can be understood by your Atma Karaka, your Atma Karaka being in having any kind of relationship with the 11th house or the 11th Lord. Okay, so these are the conditions for someone who should practice astrology. Okay, now Varaha Mihira, who is actually a very celebrated astrologer. Okay, he was a very celebrated astrologer, and he is regarded as the he has a book which is known as the Jataka of Varahamihira. So he is regarded as one of the strongest figures of authority. Okay, he had a spouse whose name was Lilavati. Okay, Varahamihira has a very, he has some shady characteristics to his personality as well. Those who know a history of Varahamihira, you will, if you read up Varahamihira, or if you read the history of Varahamihira, what happened was that he had a daughter-in-law whose name was Lilavati. Okay, now Lilavati, she was so brilliant that she had started becoming a greater astrologer than Varahamihira. So just to prevent her from becoming the best astrologer in the world at that point of time, he put some burning coal in her mouth. Okay, he put some burning coal in her mouth, and unfortunately, most of her voice got lost, and she could just speak in short phrases. Okay, her tongue got burnt, and she could only speak in very, very short phrases. So akka. So this one, okay, in this way she could speak in very, very short phrases, and because of that, she was actually known as Khana. Okay, so if you come across any astrologer whose name is Khana, it means they are referring to Lilavati. Okay, Lilavati Khana, right? Lilavati Khana, and her lineage, right? And her lineage is actually known as Khanna. Okay,
when did this happen? When did this happen?
This happened just when Varahamihira was around 70 years old. Okay, so what happened was, because she was Khana, she could only speak in short phrases. Her lineage, the lineage just started with Lilavati and her son. That lineage came to be known as Khanna. Okay, so most of the leading astrologers of earlier times, they used to have this title of Khanna because they came from that lineage. All right, so just look up the history of Varahamihira, you'll understand what I'm saying. Anyways, regardless of whatever he had done in his personal life, but we'll still consider Varahamihira as the authority on astrology. And he lists out certain qualifications for an astrologer. So the first qualification he says is that he, the physical features must be reflective of the inner nature of the astrologer. That means the astrologer must be pleasant to look at. I'm not using the word handsome. I'm using the word pleasant. Okay, it may be a male astrologer, it may be a female astrologer, but the astrologer must be pleasant to look at. Okay, he must be healthy. That means, he should not be, he should not have a bad, he should not have a crooked limb, or maybe he should not, we all know how Ashtakvakra looked, right? So he should not have a crooked limb, maybe he should not have a physical deformity, right? So he should not have, he should not have deformities in his teeth, he should not have deformities in his eyes, so he should be physically pleasant to look at. All right. Then his voice must be pleasant. As I said, the astrologer will see bad things in the chart of the client, but at the end of the day, he or she must have the ways and the means and the resources to express that unpleasantness in a very presentable manner. So this is a very essential quality of an astrologer. Okay, then the astrologer should be morally sound. Okay, morally sound means he should be truthful, he should be gentle, he should not have any craving for money, because as I said, it is very ethical for the astrologer to ask for money, but it is unethical if the astrologer scares the client to make him pay more, or to make him or her pay through his nose. Okay, he should not be a critic. Okay, he should not be a critic. For example, this is something that happens with most of us when we are learning Vedic astrology. We may come across a chart of someone. Okay, we may come across a chart of someone who is suppose involved in taking black money. For example, so in my last class on Arudha Lagna, I had mentioned a combination to check for black money. So you come across a chart where you see the chart of this person who is involved in dealings under the table, and as astrologers, or rather as human beings, we start judging that person. Oh, this person has so much of black money, maybe I should scare him a bit and and extract money out of him. So this should not be the the objective of the astrologer. Okay, there could be a chart where you would see that the person is a philander. Okay, for example, person who is having a moon and Mars in the 7th house, the person would be a philander. And as astrologers or as human beings, we have a habit of judging the person that, oh my god, this person may have had a lot of sexual interactions with the opposite gender. So these things should not be these things should not be affecting the predictions of the astrologer. The astrologer should not be judgmental about these things. Okay, then he should be he should be very, very dignified. Okay, he should be very, very dignified. Now someone might come and challenge him and say that, okay, the astrologer does not work. or Vedic astrology does not work in this way. Okay, or Vedic astrology is a, it's a gibberish science, right? It's a mythical science. So the astrologer must must know how to respond in a very gentle manner, in a very in a very polite manner, in a very dignified manner. Okay, he should not be he should not be cursing people around, right? We have all heard about Rishi Durvasa and how he used to curse the other people, but that is how that is how an astrologer should be. He should be very, very gentle. He should be very, very gentle in his behavior. He should be dignified, right? And he should also be aware of the of the constraints of historical and social circumstances. For example, someone might come to an astrologer to seek a consultation, and then you see that person having undergone, say, sexual abuse. What will happen is that the astrologer must be able to console that person. Okay, even if the person is not mentioning the history of sexual abuse, once the chart is open and the astrologer sees that a sexual abuse has happened, the person should be able to console that person and should be knowing where the person is coming from. Okay, the client may be judgmental about your abilities. The client may be judgmental about, the client may have undergone a bad experience previously with other astrologers, and for that reason the client may become judgmental. But your job as an astrologer should be to understand where the client is coming from. Okay. Then he should be, of course, proficient. He should be proficient in all the three branches of astrology. Now, astrology has three branches, as I said: the mathematical part of it, which is known as the Ganita, then the astronomical part of it, which is known as the Samhita, and finally the Hora. Hora means the understanding of time. Okay, so he must possess knowledge of the of the various divisional charts as well. He must have knowledge of the Varga charts. So we know that most people most people don't know that we actually have 16 divisional charts in our as which can be derived from the Rashi chart or from the Lagna chart. So those are known as Vargas. So he should have proper knowledge of all the Vargas so that he can fine tune the predictions. Okay, for example, if someone is coming for a birth time rectification, it is very important that the astrologer who does that birth time rectification must have a deep knowledge of Sastyamsha, must have a deep knowledge of a technique which is known as Kunda. Right? So these are the things that the astrologer must be very, very aware of. Okay. Then the astrologer must be proficient in other branches of astrology as well. So we actually have, have 4 branches of astrology. Okay. Number 1, we have the Parashara astrology, which is the mother of all branches of astrology. Then we have an extension of Parashara, which is Jaimini. Okay, now Gemini is considered to be the grandson of Parashara. Okay, and Gemini can be used as an independent treatise as well. Gemini can be used independently of Parashara, but what is generally recommended is that you must know Parashara first before you go to understand the Gemini Upadesha Sutras. And then there is this branch of astrology which is known as the Krishnamurti Paddhati. Okay, so this has become very popular in the recent times because it is it is said that it is good for predictions, which I don't really agree. But fair enough, people can have their opinion and things like that. Then there is another branch of astrology which is known as the Lal Kitab. Okay, so Lal Kitab, of course, is very, very popular, but Lal Kitab is very different from Parashara. So my problem with this is that people should not intermix these things. They may have knowledge of an astrologer should have knowledge of all the systems, but the astrologer should not intermix these things. For example, suppose someone is coming to you for a consultation and you know both of Parashara and Lal Kitab. You do the prediction either using the Parashara principles or the Gemini principles, or you follow Lal Kitab, but don't intermix the two of them. Because if you intermix, then what happens? Your entire prediction will start going wrong. Okay, for example, if you're predicting through Parashara, but you're giving remedy through the Lal Kitab, it is wrong. If you are, predicting for the Lal Kitab but giving remedies for Parashara, it is absolutely wrong. Okay, so it is very, very important to have a knowledge of all the systems, but to use them separately. It is very essential for any astrologer or for anyone who is learning the subject. Okay, so my recommendation would be to first master a particular system, and then go for the other systems as well. Okay, and then finally the astrologer must know how to time events. Okay, the astrologer must know how to time events, and for timing events, the astrologer must be conversant with 2 dashas. Okay, the astrologer must know at least 2 dashas. Okay, there are various dasha systems that are applicable in astrology. For example, The most common form of dasha is the Vimshottari dasha. It comes from the moon, where the the nakshatra in which the moon is placed. From there we have derived the Vimshottari dasha. Then we have the Narayan dasha. Okay, Narayan dasha is very specific to the tradition of Achyutananda Dasa, Shri Achyutananda Dasa, from which Sancharaji also comes. Then there is this Naisargika dasha. Naisargika dasha is the natural period of the planets. It starts with Mars, and then we come to the other planets. Then there is the Udu dasha. Okay, Udu dasha is another dasha which has been popularized by the by the tradition of Sri Achyutananda Dasa. Then we have the Jaimini Chara dasha, which of course has been popularized by Sri K. Raoji under the Bharatiya Vidya Bhavan. Okay, so for prediction, okay, or for fine-tuning predictions, the astrologer must be familiar with at least 2 dashas, so that he or she can confirm whatever predictions have been made. He or she can confirm the timeline of his or her predictions. Okay, so this is very, very important to understand, right? So the point is, just like Varahamihira lists out these qualities, similarly Parashara also advocates a similar code of conduct. Okay, and he stresses particularly on the necessity for technical, intellectual, and moral excellence. Okay, that means the astrologer must not be morally corrupt. Okay, the astrologer must be able to assess the pros and cons of any situation, and he or she must have the ability to synthesize a coherent prediction based on a sound knowledge of the principles. And most of the astrological principles, as you will study when we go along, as you study the astrological principles, you will understand that those principles will be very contradictory in some cases. Okay, so we have to, astrology is a branch of contradictions and sub-contradictions. It's a science which has many, many layers to it. And as we go along, we'll have a brief idea of those things. Now, astrology has 3 main subdivisions. Okay, so as I said, the first subdivision is the Samhita. Okay, Samhita, it encompasses areas like like weather forecasts, like agricultural produce, how the harvest will be in a particular year. Will the area be afflicted by any kind of natural disasters? Okay, will there be any floods or famines or wars or earthquakes? Then the market trends, for example, when you look at financial astrology, when you see people practicing financial astrology, they are actually practicing a part of Samhita. Okay, political astrology, nowadays it has become very, very famous, right? Who will become the next prime minister, who will become the next chief minister, who will become the next president of the US. So changes in government at the national level as well as at international level, as well as at international level. So anything that actually impacts the masses or influences the masses is a part of Samhita. And most of the popular content that you see on astrology, like financial astrology, like electional astrology, like like the astrology of politics, it is based on Samhita. Okay, and there is a chart which is known as Varshapal. That means you can actually see how your year will be. Okay, so that is also a part of Samhita astrology. Okay, similarly, you can also make a chart during a birthday, which is known as Tithi Pravesh, right? So Tithi Pravesh will tell you how the entire year will be starting from your birthday. So that is also a part of Samhita, right? Similarly, there is a chart that is made to predict the annual world predictions. Okay, so that chart is based on either the Hindu New Year. So we know that the Hindu New Year, it starts on the Chaitra Shukla Pratipad. There are various versions of the Hindu New Year. Okay, but the common acceptable version is that it starts on Chaitra Shukla Pratipad, or more commonly when the sun enters into Aries, right? When the sun enters into Aries. So it's a time of festivities for most of the people. Okay, this is also known as the Indian New Year. Yes, then comes the Siddhanta or Tantra or Ganita. So this actually will deal with the mathematical aspects of astrology. Okay, and there are actually several types of treatises on Siddhanta astrology, but 5 of them are very, very important. The most popular, it is well known to everyone, it is the Surya Siddhanta. But apart from that, there are other 4 Siddhantas also, which are very, very important. Then there is the Paulisha Siddhanta. Then there is the Lomash Siddhanta or the Romaka Siddhanta. Then there is the Vashisht Siddhanta. And then there is the Paitamaha Siddhanta. So these are, these are various books dealing with the mathematical aspects of astrology, and the astrologer must be proficient in at least one of them. Okay, of course, it'll, you can, it's not that I'll ask you to, I'll make you go through the Surya Siddhanta, okay, or through any other Siddhanta like the Polish Siddhanta. But, to become a Vedic astrologer, it was very, very recommended in the ancient times that the astrologer must be proficient in at least one of these. Okay, then comes the Hora part. So Hora, this is the predictive part of astrology. It will deal with the individual horoscope. So individual horoscope is also known as the Jatak. Okay, it will also deal with the Muhurta part of it. Okay, Muhurta is also known as electional astrology in the West. Okay, so at Muhurta, it deals with the election of favorable planetary dispositions to achieve specific accomplishments in day-to-day life. For example, when you should get married, okay, or when you should file a divorce, right? When you should sign a contract, or when you should buy that house, when you should buy that car. All of them will fall under the Muhurta part of Hora astrology. Okay, now the study of astrology has been branded by a lot of people as a belief in superstition. Okay, but you'll see most of the people who criticize the subject of astrology are those who have actually never studied the subject. Okay, and many critics, they question the basis of astrology, often ignoring the fact that an understanding of a basis has to succeed and not precede an observation. Okay, the basis, for example, this basis of gravitational pull was determined after the existence of the force of gravitation was recognized, right? And anyone who studies astrology with an open mind, yes, this is the condition, your mind has to be open. Anyone who studies astrology with an open mind has to appreciate the fact that astrology is a highly developed science, as you will see as we go along. Okay, now what is science, right? What is science? If you have to define science, it means a knowledge which is backed up by observation and experiment, right? It is knowledge which is critically tested, it is knowledge which is systemized, and it is knowledge which is brought under general principles to work under all circumstances. And if you study astrology in a traditional way, in the way I have been taught, or in the way in the way I have been taught, or in the way others have been, other traditions teach astrology, you will see that astrology will strictly fulfill all these criteria. Okay, now while we look at the scientific nature of astrology, and we will see how astrology is very, very scientific as we go along. Okay, it's a long course. It's meant to be a long course. It will be almost a year till we complete this course. So two aspects of astrology must be, we must look at these two special aspects of astrology that must be mentioned. Number one is the cause and effect phenomenon. Okay, so any critic of astrology who say that astrology is not a science, right, they will say that physical sciences, okay, are the subjects of science like physics or chemistry. They will depend upon a cause and effect relationship, and this is something that is not present in astrology. But at the end of the day, what those people fail to understand is that astrology is actually a cosmic science, and just like physical sciences are bounded by the limitations of a laboratory, cosmic sciences are not bounded by those limitations, right? In physical science, there may be a gross or a subtle cause, right? The cause may produce a physically visible effect or a gross effect. For example, we all have used electricity, but we have never seen electricity. We can only see the effect of electricity. Okay, so that is a very gross effect. It is not physically visible, right? We all know that the force of gravitation exists, but it is a very subtle cause. It produces a gross effect of attracting a physical body towards the earth. Yes, so in case of astrology, the cause is always subtle. Okay, the cause is always subtle, while the effect is appreciable and predictable according to the rules which have been developed and refined over the centuries. As I said, astrology is a department of contradictions. Of course, those contradictions will be there. Okay, but the subtle cause in case of astrology is the cosmic force that is represented by the placement of various planets in the horoscope. Okay, so as I said, astrology is a department of contradictions, but astrology deals with a multitude of phenomena on the earth. That is the reason these contradictions are coming up. Okay, so what happens is, as I said, the astrologer must be proficient in at least 2 or 3 dashas, so that his or her predictions can be tested from multiple angles. Okay, so because there are numerous parameters And because there are a lot of methodologies to study an event, to understand or interpret an event, making correct predictions can become difficult. Okay, can become difficult, and it will require a lot of hard work on part of an astrologer who is actually running the, who is actually learning the subject. I'm sorry, who is actually learning the subject. Okay, so astrology, as I said, it is perfect. And always remember that failure of an astrologer to predict something is not the failure of astrology. Okay, failure of an astrologer is not the failure of astrology. Astrology is perfect, but astrologer is not, because we are all humans. Okay, we are all humans living in this difficult age of Kali Yuga. So obviously predictions will go wrong, predictions will fail. So that is the reason why the astrologer is always advised to undergo certain rigorous spiritual practices, so that the planets don't affect his or her predictions. Okay. Then comes the phenomenon of replication. So this is another field why astrology is is criticized, because people say that scientific principles can be replicated, but astrological principles, they don't yield results which can be replicated or reproduced. Okay, but the point is, every correct astrological prediction, okay, underscores the principle of replication in astrology, right? Every correct astrological prediction will will undermine this principle of replication which people so much demand. Okay, so because astrology is a complex science, every known principle has to be applied carefully, every known principle. But the problem is, most principles are not known if you don't have a if you don't study under the guidance of a guru, or if you don't study under the guidance of a tradition. That is the reason you see most of the traditions, they call people from all over the world, and they usually conduct astrological classes in the Himalayas. Why? Because there your mind is free from all the stress and the tension and the the principles, okay, that are there, that have been there for the last, say, hundreds and hundreds of years. They can be applied carefully, considering the numerous parameters and considering the various pros and cons. Okay, so what happens is, in most of the astrological texts, as I said, numerous astrological sutras are hidden. Okay, they are hidden. Okay, and those sutras are available only to the custodians of a particular tradition. Yes, for example, the sutras of the tradition of Sri Achyutananda Dasa is available only to Sancharat, and he has transmitted it to his students. Okay, so if those sutras are unfolded and if those sutras are carefully applied, what will happen is that they will prove their eternal applicability and give dazzling results, which which scientists can only marvel at. Okay, for example, I'll just give you an example to make this point clear. So a planetary combination, okay, a planetary combination that was present at the time of Mahabharata, it was it is clearly mentioned in a conversation between Karna and Krishna. Okay, so that planetary combination was also present in 1914 when the World War I started. That planetary combination was also present in 1942 when the World War II was in progress, and that planetary combination was also present in 1971 at a time when India and Pakistan were fighting. Okay, so what happened is, during all these occasions, India got involved in the mess. Yes, India had gotten involved in the world first.
Can you repeat that? Deepanshu, can you repeat that planetary combination? Thanks.
I'm saying that there was a planetary combination that was mentioned by Karna to Krishna during the Mahabharata. There is a conversation between Karna and Krishna where Karna says that this war is inevitable, because Mahabharata, if you look at the Mahabharata, people have made Duryodhana as the villain. Okay, he is the most despicable character in the Mahabharata, followed by Shakuni. But very few people will actually understand or know the fact that the war was started by Karna. He was the one who had proposed the war. He was the one who had said that to resolve the conflict, there must be a war between the Kauravas and the Pandavas. He was the one who had proposed it. And when Krishna took objection to it, he had mentioned a very specific planetary combination. So that combination was present in the First World War. That combination was present in the Second World War. That combination was also present when when this Indo-Pakistan War of 1971 was taking place. And we know that India was involved in all the two world wars. Okay, so that's how it was.
So do you know that planetary combination?
I do. I want you to find out, of course. I'll not reveal that, of course. I'll not reveal that. See, the thing is that
come on.
the thing is that, just as I said, it's a planetary combination. I have given you 3 hints. I've given enough hints, right? The First World War, the Second World War, and the 1971 Indo-Pakistan War. Just look up the planetary combination. It'll be there. It'll be there. It is related to Mars. That is the hint I am dropping. But other than that, I'll not say anything. Okay. Twinkle Ji, you just ping me personally for this. Okay, I'll tell you how. Okay, she is saying that there should be a Guru Dakshina. You can ping me personally for that. There is no demand from my end. Okay. So even in 1965, when this India-Pakistan war happened, that planetary combination again, it again came up, but it was a modified one. Okay, I'm not going into the specifics. So what will happen is, people can heap lots of criticism on astrology, but it is very interesting to watch. Okay, when such a combination happens in the future, right? So what form it will take, right? So these are the 2 bones of contention in astrology. Now we'll come to that part where astrology, where the astrologer comes into the picture, and that is the karma. Okay, so karma is the total of one's physical, mental, and spiritual functions. Okay, the world will go on because there is a role of So the world will go on because there is a role of free will assigned to human beings. Okay, we are not exactly free. Okay, we are not exactly free. There is no free will. Okay, there is no free will. If anyone has this doubt whether there is free will, no, there is no free will. I'm absolutely clear. I can give you a proof also. There is no free will. Everything is happening based on our, based on our programming that has gone through over we don't know how many lifetimes. Okay, there is no free will, right? So where does astrology fit in? Does it deal with predestination? No, it does not deal with predestination. Okay, is there a conflict between belief in astrology and in free will? No, there is no conflict. Okay, how can scriptures lay emphasis on both if they are mutually conflicting? Because they are not mutually conflicting. Okay, for example, this is a quotation that Mantriji was a very popular astrologer. I'll not tell you the name of, I'll not tell you the exact name of Mantriji, but Mantriji was the one from whom this American astrologer Hart, before he had learned his astrological lessons, from whom Robert Svoboda ji had learned his astrological lessons. So he was often of the opinion that it is, it is easy. Suppose you are looking at a chart and there is a combination that this person will fall from a height. Now, if you are giving remedies, it is very much possible that the person who was supposed to get a limb amputation will actually hurt a finger if the remedies are done perfectly. Okay, so astrology cannot prevent an earthquake, but what it will do is that it will tell you that this earthquake is about to occur so that you can take the necessary precautions. Okay, so this is, this is something which must be understood. Okay, there is a free will that we have. Okay, there is a free will that we have, but this free will is not the free will to do anything we want. This free will is concerned with choice. There is a choice we have to follow the will of God. This is the meaning of free will. The choice that we have to follow the will of God is free will. Okay, so astrology is actually based on the relationship of cause and effect. Okay, so if there is an effect, there must be a cause preceding it. If we are seeing the fan move when we switch on the when we put the switch on, there must be a cause, and the cause is electricity. Okay, so any event which is good or bad, if it happens, right, there must be a cause for it. And it is perfectly okay that's if such a cause is not noticed or if such a cause is not appreciable, right? For example, there may be a bad event which happens in our life, but the cause may be due to some, due to some issue in our previous life. And it is fine if it is that way, right? So certain functions or karmas, they will produce an immediate result. If one has attended my seminar on the law of karma, you will understand how how the karmic manifestations take place. Okay, and then there are some karmas which fructify after a long time period, say after 100 years or after 150 years. So time is linear, but our births are not linear, right? Our births are not linear. We will just shift from one body to the other. So something that did not happen in this body or something that did not happen in the previous body will happen either in this body or will happen in the next body that we take up. Okay, so this is something that that we must understand, right? So if you believe in this law of karma, okay, if you believe in this law of cause and effect, right, so whatever happens to us, it is not a mere probability. It is not a mere game of chess. Okay, it has to be something related to birth and rebirth. Okay, so whatever karmas you do in this birth, they will manifest sometime either in this birth or in a later birth. This is a common consensus we have to reach if we are to study Vedic astrology. Okay, and of course we have to understand that all our past karmas will produce certain limitations, because they will, they will produce certain results that will influence our future karmas, right? So we, of course, we have a will, we have a choice to follow the will of God, but that will be within the limitations that are given by the results of our past actions. Okay, and it is these karmas that eventually become our destiny. Okay, our condition is just like that cow who is tied to a pole. Okay, the length of the rope is variable. Is that variable? Is that free will that we have? Some people have a long rope, some people have a short rope, but the pole is fixed. Okay, that fixed thing is our destiny. Okay, and that destiny is in fact manufactured by our karmas. Okay, so the astrologer can point out, okay, the astrologer can point out, or the astrologer has the ability to point out which karmas can be overcome, which cannot be overcome. Okay, there are certain karmas which can be overcome, which are known as dhrida karmas, and then there are certain karmas which cannot be overcome, they are known as adhrida karmas. Okay, and then there are certain karmas which can be overcome by our effort, which is known as dhrida adhrida karma, right? So what is it? Is that a karma is like shooting an arrow. Okay, it is like shooting an arrow, and when you shoot an arrow, there is no way to pull the arrow back. Okay, you can neutralize that arrow by shooting another arrow. That is a different thing. Okay, but when you shoot an arrow, there is no way that you can pull the arrow back. Okay, so this neutralization of the arrow that was shot by you, whether this arrow can be neutralized or whether it cannot be neutralized, that is the job of the astrologer. The astrologer will tell you what to do or what cannot be done or what should not be done. That is. Okay, and then there is also this link of astrologer with our genetics. Okay, so if you if you look at the astrological charts of a certain family, you will see that most of the people will have the same moon sign. For example, I was looking at this chart of a family, the mother and 3 children, all of them had the same moon sign. Okay, so this is an area of research. A lot of research will be needed. Further research will be needed, right? So what happens is that just like certain blood groups cannot exist among the children of particular parents, so certain planetary combinations can be obtained in certain families. Okay, so study of horoscopes belonging to a family indicates certain similarities which are very which can be very easily seen and very easily appreciated, right? And then the final thing that astrology deals with is the concept of interlinked destiny. Okay, so this happens when we get married, right? If a spouse has a combination, if someone has a combination for divorce, then almost invariably the person with whom he or she is married to, that person will also have the same combination. It will be there. Okay, it will be there. So different individuals who are linked to each other in one way or the other will show distinct similarities in their horoscope charts, right? And this can be used as a remedy as well. Suppose someone has a very bad chart which shows divorce, so the remedy is to find someone with a chart who does not have that divorce. Okay, this can be used as a remedy, although it is not recommended, but it can be used as a remedy, just to give you an example. So an event which is visible in the horoscope of a child can be seen in the horoscope of his parents as well as siblings, right? Similarly, people who come in close contact in mutual relationships like marriage or even in business partnerships, they will show some striking similarities in their chart at appropriate periods. Okay, so what happens is just like particles of similar destinies, they sync to a similar extent. So people people who have similar pursuits, they tend to get grouped together, right? The reason why you have come together, all of you have come together, is because there is something in the chart that is showing that you must study Vedic astrology. All right. Is this equivalent of a synastry chart in a Western astrology? No. So the thing is that synastry is in Western astrology is done very differently as compared to the synastry in Vedic astrology. Okay, it is done very differently. So I'll not say that it is similar to synastry, but maybe we can have a session on synastry and how charts should be matched. Okay. So now what happens? Coming to the predictions. Okay. So all of us, let's be very clear, we are studying Vedic astrology because we want to predict certain events in our lives. Okay, so unfortunately, as the Indian traditions, they got eroded due to invasions by the Islamic invaders, or due to invasions by the British. So astrology also shrank into certain family traditions. It got confined to a few families only. Okay, and because of this, the approach became more and more rigid. Right? It is going more and more rigid. Okay. So until recently, astrologers are using only those methods which are there for public consumption. So those methods are very, very limited. But the methods, as I said, they are held by the custodians of a parampara, and you'll get access to these methods only if you become a member of that parampara, right? But because it is the age of Rahu, who is open to who is there to open up everything. We've seen how during 2020 everything got opened up, right? Online education, which was considered only as a possibility, it all of a sudden it became a very viable way of getting educated, right? So because we are living in a very Rahuvian age, because we are living in a very Saturnine age, what is happening is that these methods of Vedic astrology have become open. Okay, and the credit must also go to a few individuals like Shri K.N. Rao Sahab, who has done a lot of work for Vedic astrology. There is Shri Murali Manohar Joshi ji, who actually made astrology a university subject. Okay, so these politicians, these people, K.N. Rao Sahab was of course doing some other job, but he resigned from everything and he dedicated his entire life to Vedic astrology, and he has produced a lot of students who would stand, or who would vouch by his name. So, right. So what has happened is that because of the efforts of these people, okay, because of the efforts of institutions like Bharatiya Vidya Bhavan and other things, these astrological methods are actually coming out in the open, right? And in the next class, we will actually look at a few astronomical concepts. Okay, because astronomical concepts are very, very important if we have to understand the science of Vedic astrology. And perhaps from the third class, we will actually take a deep dive into this world of Vedic astrology. So next class, we will have a look at the astronomical concepts. So I'll be ending the class at this. If you have a question, if you have questions, you're most welcome.
Thank you. I have a question, or does someone have a question? I wanted to ask you, when you talked about, things in the chart to be an astrologer, the fifth lord associated with Agni and the Laglanord, and, Ketu must be placed in a, fire sign. Is there a source for that you quoted that from?
I was taught by my guru that, okay, of course there are sources there. It is mentioned in the Graha Guna Adhyaya of Brahat Parashara Hora Shastra, but of course the mention will not be direct. Someone has to derive the principle for you.
No, but just do these come from Parasha?
Yes,
or,
they do. They come.
So it's not a modern. It's
no,
not
no, it's not a modern.
Okay.
It's not a
All
modern.
right. And then could you explain briefly again you mentioned the word pole. Okay, I understand about the free will. That's totally cool. But you talked about a pole and a ribbon that's longer or shorter. Could you just go into that analogy again?
Yeah, so I'm saying that our situation as human beings is like the condition of a cow who is tied to a pole. Okay, so that pole is our destiny. Okay, and the rope to which the cow is tied to the pole, that rope is the free will. Some cow will have a short rope, some cow will have a longer rope that allows it to consume more grass. So that is the analogy I was trying to make.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Hi, Devoshi. Is there any specific structure in which you are actually planning to roll out this?
Yeah, the structure was shared in the group. I'll share the message again.
Okay.
Yeah, so Sandeep ji, any books you can take up books by V.V. Raman ji, how to read a horoscope. You can also take up books by Shri K.N. Rao ji. Okay, on predictive Hindu astrology. So those books can be recommended as beginners books. Saket ji, how much time in a day we should give to read and study? Ideally, 1 hour in 3 hours a week. That would be enough. Okay, 3 hours a week would be good. Can you outline your approach to the course? Yeah, a syllabus was actually given out. Okay, a syllabus was actually given out. Let me see if I have it here with me. Just a minute. If I have it in my PC, I will just share it with you. Just hold on. So we have covered the introduction part of Vedic astrology. Then we'll be going for, we'll be, just a minute.
Sorry. One second.
Yeah, we will be actually going, we have covered the introductory part. This is meant to be the introduction class. Then we will be going into the elementary concepts of astronomy. That would ideally take up 1 or 2 classes. Then we will look at the signs, the houses and the planets. Then we will look at the nature of planets. Then we will have the significations of the karakas of the houses and the planets as well. Then how to cast a horoscope. Okay, how to look at the cusp of houses. There is something which is known as the cusp of houses. We'll also look at the longitude of the planets and what degrees these imply. Okay, if you cast a horoscope using a software, you'll see certain degrees or planets placed in certain degrees. So we'll see what those degrees implies. Then look at the Vargas, the Shodasha Vargas or the 16 divisional charts. Then we look at the Upagrahas, Mandi, Gulika. Okay, then we will look at the planetary states. There are certain avasthas. Okay, the planet may be in a young age, which is known as the Bala Avastha. The planet may be in a higher degree, say 29 degrees. It is known as Vriddha Avastha. Okay, those are the planetary avasthas. Then we will look at Graha Bala, the strength of planets. Okay, then we will look at the Dasha system. And we will be specifically studying one Dasha, which is the Vimshottari Dasha. Okay, we'll be studying a thing which is known as Arishta. Okay, how Arishta happens and how unnatural deaths can take place. Okay, and what are the conditions that that prevent Arishta Bhanga. Okay, then we can look at we'll be looking at the placement of lords of houses in different houses, planets in different houses, planets in different signs. We will look at the yogas. Okay, what the yogas are available. Then we will also look at some very specific yogas, right? And we will also look at a part which is known as the calculation of longevity, because an astrologer, before calculating the longevity of others, they should actually know to calculate their own longevity. We'll also have a brief overview of astrology of health and disease. Okay, then we will have a look at Varshafal, how the annual chart is produced. We'll also look at Muhurta, how to calculate a correct Muhurta. Finally, we will go for the matching of charts. Then we will look at Prashna. Then we will see how planetary transits affect us. Then we will have a look at Ashtak Varga. And finally, we will have a look at a topic which is known as Sudarshan Chakra. So it'll be a year-long course. It's going to be a long haul for all of us. Okay. Do you teach financial astrology, stock market? I do. You ask, just message me personally for the payment details and the course details. Okay. Which software should we use to read or draw charts? Saket ji, you can use Jagannath Hora, which is available freely for the computer. It is by Sri Narasimha Rao ji. Okay, he has been very generous in offering us. For mobiles, you can use a Jyotish app. Okay, Jyotish app is of course free. For the other mobile app that is accurate is the Divya Chakshu app. Okay, but Divya Chakshu is not recommended for everyone. Okay. Astro Sage, I don't recommend because sometimes it can give some outlandish placement of planets. Okay, so for my personal experience, Jagannath Hora for PC or J Hora as it is known, the download is easily available on vedicastrologer.org, which is Narasimha Raoji's website. Paid software, it can be Sri Jyoti Star, it can be Parashara's Light also, but I don't recommend any one of you using paid softwares. Okay.
Why not paid software?
Because you don't have to pay for something which is available for free. You don't pay for air, isn't it? Of course, there will be a time when we'll be paying for air, but you don't pay for air, right?
What about the cosmic insight one?
Cosmic Insight is good, but they'll ask you constantly for upgrading it and for subscriptions. Okay.
So you said it's called Jyotish app, and the second one was
Yeah, it is known as Jyotish app. Aries, just the basics, whatever you talked about. Yes, these are the basics. Okay, these are the basics. We have an advanced course of astrology also. That will be, of course, that will be after this thing is completed. And there is a branch of astrology, which is the astrology of the future. That is medical astrology. I'll announce once we are well into this thing, we will actually announce a batch on medical astrology. So where you can actually diagnose and diseases based on the planetary combinations of a person. Okay. When we'll be ready to interpret our own chart, it will be around 10 classes. Okay. What would the typical astrology reading or session look like? RTG, there is a video on my YouTube channel on how to read a horoscope. Please look that up. You'll understand what it looks like. Okay. Can you explain the effects of bhakti and using that to go beyond the effects of planets? This is a complicated topic, Udaiji, because bhakti has its own limitations. Okay. When you see, it is Divya Chakshu, CHAKSU, Chakshu. Okay. So bhakti is something which is very, very debatable. Okay. Bhakti is something which is very, very debatable, because whatever cause and effect that you see, it is just like a chemical reaction. When water is produced, 2 units of hydrogen has to react with 2 units of oxygen. If that formula does not hold, if that chemical combination does not hold, water cannot be produced, right? Water cannot be produced. Similarly, if the right ingredients are not there, if the right perspective is not there, bhakti will not work. For example, you can be very, very devoted to bhakti. You can be very, very devoted to Agni, right? You can worship Agni Dev regularly at your home. You can sing the Agni Suktam. You can offer things to Agni. But suppose you are putting your hand in the fire. Will the fire tell you that, oh my God, you have done so much bhakti of me, I will not burn you? It is not possible. Okay. So bhakti is essential, but it has certain limitations. You also have to understand, and apart from bhakti, there are certain other technicalities that must be satisfied. Okay. Depending on the problems we find in chart, are we going to learn about how to suggest a remedy and from where we can find remedy for that problem? Yes. Remedial part is, I'll be discussing some very basic mantra based remedies. Okay. Tantra remedies are not meant to be discussed here. For Tantra remedies, you have to ping me directly. For mantra remedies, I will discuss towards the end of this, class, toward the end of this course, I'm sorry. And for to take a deep dive into remedies, you have to wait for the advanced course. Okay. Jyotish dashboard. No, it is simply known as Jyotish app. Okay. It is known as Jyotish app. All right, then. Thank you, everyone. I hope all of you had a good time in learning, just as I had a good time in teaching. Okay.
I have one question.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much. When again going over the what your Guruji taught you for K2 and the Lagna Lord and then the Atma Karka, you said you can include Rahu, and it has to have a relationship with the 11th house or the Lord of the 11th house. So in this case, could it be if someone's Atma Karka is if someone's Atma Karka is next to a bhava where what did you say, Gemini or
Gemini?
Oh, it's connected to it's connected to the 11th Lord.
The 11th Atma Karaka has to aspect the 11th house or the 11th Lord either through Rashi Drishti or Graha Drishti. That is the relationship.
Okay.
It has to be a Rashi Drishti, that is the aspect from the signs, or through Graha Drishti, which is the direct aspect, or 3 aspects that other planets can have.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
There is, because there's a word called hemmed where planets are hemmed in. So is there a thing where there are?
No. Hemming is not a connection. Hemming becomes a connection only for results. Okay. For example, a planet may be hemmed between.
Oh, I know. No, I got it. Yeah, no, I was just using that as an example. Is there a relationship where there's a planet in a house and another planet in a house and they're next to each other?
No. That is not a relationship. That is not a relationship at all.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you for clarifying that.
All right then. Thank you everyone. We'll be having a session on the Labha Amsha, which is the D11, and the wealth. We'll have that on Wednesday, hopefully. So hope to see most of you there. And thank you everyone for joining. We'll see you next Sunday. Now, okay, there is one question quickly. 8th Lord sitting in the 7th house, can then one also earn? No, Twinkle Ji. This is a tricky question. 8th Lord sitting in the 7th house, it can actually lead to some problems in marriage if the Navamsha is also supporting. Okay, the condition is that if the Navamsha is supporting, or if the 7th Lord is in a bad position in the Navamsha, it can lead to some difficulties. Okay, what can happen is 8th Lord in the 7th house, what it can do is that you can earn a lot of inheritance after marriage. Okay, that is one interpretation. Yes, 8th Lord is the 8th house, is the house of the occult, but if you look at the occult, if you look at the application of the occult, it is not the 8th house, it's the 6th house, because it is the 11th from the 8th house. Okay, so the only interpretation that I can give is that if the 8th Lord is sitting in the 7th house after marriage, there can be, there can be some form of inheritance coming your way. Okay. All right. Thank you, everyone. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel. The recording will be available on Wednesday. I wanted to, this is a deliberate attempt so that people attend live class, or people are encouraged to attend the live class. So namaste, everyone. Thank you for joining. Really blessed to have all of you here.
Thank you. Deepanshu Ji, can you reshare the syllabus?
Yeah, I will do that on WhatsApp. Okay.
Fantastic.
Also, just to confirm, where will the recording be available?
It is available. It will be available on my YouTube channel. It is known as, the channel is Astro Vedic, Learn Vedic Astrology Secrets. You search for it, or I'll post the link in the group as well. You can subscribe to it so that you can get up the updates.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure. Namaste.